can. I'm not above fighting back, but like I certainly have had some clips where I get mean, but I would much prefer to have this kind of conversation than that kind of conversation if given the opportunity.
That's true.
I'm panel-verse adjacent.
Yeah.
See, everyone knows what the panel verse is when we say panel verse. Everybody gets it. Shout out. Also, if you would like to be part of the conversation, I currently have 4 backstage hanging out. If you want to join in to push back or agree or whatever you want to do. I know I've got probably one of each side coming in behind backstage right now. So I'm interested to see which direction it goes. But feel free to hit the link. It is officially in the chat. If you're watching over on Ryan's end or Lawyer Chick's end, they're welcome to drop the StreamYard link on their ends or just come over here and find it at the Raging Tomato. We got you. Kinetic Cal says, I'm broke. Someone help, please. Yes, Kinetic Cal officially hitting off the first dono goal of the evening. But we love our little Cal. She's our darling. Thank you so kindly. Screaming Beagle following the trend to send in another 10 to hit the goal. Thank you so kindly. And of course, Tom Carpenter stepping in with my favorite color to put on screen. Shout out to you. And I hope everyone sent tomatoes along the way. Thank you. And Tom follows up with another 20 to say, no need for a Department of Education, just need funds management with simple rules for access to funds. Let local boards controlled by local communities do their jobs. You were clapping, Ryan. I think this was very in line with a degree of what you were saying earlier.
He gives you big money. He agrees with my talking points. Carpenter Tom and me are clearly friends. This is going to work out, Carpenter. You're a good guy.
Lawyer Chick, did you have any thoughts to add into that or disagree, agree?
Yeah, actually, I'm just posting a Mark Twain quote that I could not remember. The famous Mark Twain quote about school boards is, in the first place, God made idiots. That was made for practice. Then he made school boards. Have you ever heard that? So like local school boards, I'm telling you, I've worked, those are some real locally, it could go either way. My friend in Texas just had 10 commandments donated to her classroom.
But you know what? Texas did have the common sense to reject Common Core. So,
and they rewrote all of their textbooks, right?
But I think that I have to run down the numbers again because I don't have them written down. But I'm pretty sure that their data has been better than Common Core's data has been on average. Now that's kind of a low bar because Common Core is such a disastrous program that if they spent an hour a day on the 10 commandments and then like 7 hours a day doing something rational in their education system, they would easily beat Common Core. So that might not be a ringing endorsement, but I think it's I would be unsurprised if they topped it just because of how bad that rollout's been.
Fair enough. Tom adds in again, I don't know, that government cheese in the 70s was pretty good. I don't know what the government cheese in the 70s was. Is that like Cheese Whiz or something? What are we talking about?
The yellow.
That's good old American.
Cheese.
Yeah.
Yellow welfare cheese.
If you're getting government food, like it's I don't know, and reservations they call them just rations or commodities. That's what they call them on the res. Commodities, government cheese. It's the yellow square. It's like yellow square American cheese, but it's a big ass block of it. I think that's what you're talking about, Carpenter Tom.
Yeah, there's I can never pronounce it right. What is it called? Budae jjigae. It's a Korean stew, and it's hilarious because it was created during the Korean War when our rations were being dumped into Korea. So it's a Korean stew that has like Spam and American cheese in it. So that's what I always think of when you do government cheese. It's actually weirdly good, but it's a Korean recipe based off of American military rations and good old 70s government cheese.
Yeah.
That sounds nasty.
It is what it is. But yeah, huge block of cheese.
It's actually pretty good.
Ooh, YTC sending love just for me to tell all of you I love you. Thanks for watching. And finally, my mom is in the chat and she said huge block of cheese. So I guess she knows what you're talking about as well.
I love that your mom is Mama Tomato.
Yeah, Mama Tomato, and then Dad. I don't see Dad in the chat yet, but Grumpy Tomato is my father. But yeah, huge fans of mine. They love
They
coming
should be
here.
very proud of you.
They
Honestly.
are. They really are.
That's so cool.
like,
Yeah.
like what kid calls their parents and says, "So I'm a YouTuber," and they're like, "That sounds great." Like, no, mine are just so ecstatic about it.
I love it.
For sure. And then Carpenter, Tom Carpenter follows up with my second favorite color to put on screen. Thank you so kindly. We missed you, Tom. I hope you're feeling much better and on the mend. Says the number one reason our education system sucks is because they have as their primary focus something other than proper education. A quick perusal of major K through 12 journals makes this obvious.
He is dead right. I didn't deep dive this because it's a little bit beyond our topic of the debate. This has more to do with teacher education training, and I will say, teacher education training is a goddamn joke. Like you have no idea how easy it is and how ideologically based it is. Like, and to give you this example, I was indifferent in law school. I did really well, but before law school, I kind of didn't care about school. And when I was an undergrad, I was a very indifferent student. And by indifferent, I mean I rarely attended classes. And I think I had like a 3 something, but I had a 4.0 in my ed minor because all you had to do was show up and repeat the buzzwords and you got an A. Like it's a joke. And most of it is not about teaching you how to teach, but teaching you what to value. And that's a huge mistake, especially because one of the things we teach people to value now is the idea that every kid should go to college, which has never been true and fed our student loan debt, cheapened our collegiate institutions, and hollowed out our blue collar workers who we don't have a program like my sister lives in Germany and they have a system where kids are tracked and not everybody goes to college. A lot of kids are directed into the trades because they're going to have a better, more productive life. And it's not stigmatized the same way it is here. We don't need that system, but we need some other system. And Carpenter's right. Our system right now is, I think, charitably could be described as ideologically based rather than outcome based. And that's a problem.
Do you think it's because people that go into education tend to be already of that ideology?
I think that's part of it. I think it's a giant echo chamber. I think which is another issue with it. Like, I don't like when you were teaching, I ask this to teachers all the time. One thing I was told was that about IDEA, for example, was that inclusive teaching had no drawbacks. It was better for the kids who were included. It was better for the kids who aren't special ed. It was better for everybody. And there was no drawbacks to it, which doesn't really make any sense if you take a second to think about it. Like any system has trade-offs and drawbacks. But know what's interesting about that? No one ever presented me with any data. It was just a thing I was taught to believe. It was not a thing that they presented data to make a case for, which is odd.
Yeah, but I think they presented it because it's like, this is the law and this is what you have to implement.
Yeah.
That's the way I recall it. And but even in law school, I mean, I did a whole lot in the special ed world and clinic. And I did a lot of work with education of incarcerated kids. That's really one of my jams. But I think the issue, isn't like, well, you could teach special ed this way and it'll work better. Right. There was never really a conversation about like how to teach them the best. It was just like, this is how you're mandated to teach because of the law. And now, right, 20 years out and you had 7, now I can see, my God, I think all of this like differentiation and putting all the kids in the same room. And like, I think way earlier in the comments, somebody had said, some classrooms, 1/3 of those kids will have individual education plans, IEPs. And, you might have one kid with an aide and one kid with an interpreter, like somebody who's hearing impaired and the interpreter. Like teachers have to deal sometimes with like 2 or 3 other adults in the room because of their special education students and what those kids need. So that gets expensive. Like that's where the shit gets really expensive. I don't know that it's necessarily just general education is so expensive. It's when you add up all of this other stuff. But I think we're very unpopular in being educators who are just publicly, and I want to do more. I want to do more public denouncing of IDEA. I've been talking about it really more like this publicly for like a year. And now I'm even talking more to teachers about it. Cause I'm like, this is done. And teachers, it's like, you can almost see they're like freed. It's like freedom for them to think that maybe this isn't the right way to do this. You know, maybe this is like oppressive, and maybe average kids who could have been pushed up are not being pushed up because you have to spend all of this time, right?
Yeah.
Finishing the paperwork and dealing with the 3, aides in your room. And, one is like sitting in the back, not even doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, I think I think most people realize how much teachers do have to deal with, whether they're a shitty teacher or not.
Yeah. I mean, back when I got my master's in education, like the phrase back then this was before DEI. So the phrase inclusive wasn't it just hadn't been coined
Inclusion
yet.
And mainstreamed.
Back then, yeah, the mantra was everybody gets to play and learn, which sounds very innocuous, but it actually is exactly what you're talking about, which is the idea of that we're going to do mainstreaming, right? And that's the value system that justifies mainstreaming rather than it being data about why mainstreaming is such a good program, right?
Yeah, there's no data.
It was not taught that way. And then that became inclusivity, and that became like a string of other buzzwords. But I think Carpenter's right. Like, I think that the focus in teacher training is often on believing certain values. And that's not great. It really should be on other things. And the truth is, a lot of teachers leave teacher training and they're not very good. Like I was in Teach for America. And if for those of you who don't know, that meant that like with no training before I got my ed degree, we're given a 6-week boot camp and thrown into classrooms. And by the numbers, outperform veteran teachers.
That is the best way to learn.
Yeah. And the reason is our entire training was about practical ed. And it was a lot of kids who were really motivated to do really well. And that's it. Right. And it's just so much of what teachers learn and what they're told to do has nothing to do with educating kids. And that's a problem.
What about, do you remember Gifted Talented? I mean, I was always gifted talented.
Me too.
Whatever happened with that?
Equity happened.
We were split. I remember being split, and it was always like, you're in the dumb class, right? I'm in the smart class, right? Like, I remember that. And I always thought it worked well, at least from my perspective as a student. We like kind of moved a little faster through what we were doing. I used to get bored a lot in classes, so I was given like extra things I could do, because you would finish up and you're like, I'm done. Well, now what? And then that's when they realize let's move you up into another class. But why don't we do it that way anymore? It's
two things. It's the thing we talked about. If you're tracking with modern IDEA regulations, the special class is what you're describing, but the bottom classes are now hellish nightmares of behavior problems because you're concentrating. Like when you went to school, all the kids with really serious disabilities and really serious behavior problems were in a separate classroom.
Yeah,
right?
Self-contained classroom.
But now they're all in the lower 2 tracked classrooms. Mm-hmm. So when you track, you take all the kids out who are useful, and you create these zones that no teacher wants to teach, and they become really, really hard to manage. So that's problem A. And then problem B, though this is beyond the scope of our debate, is in a lot of places like New York, San Francisco, et cetera, people point out that when you track, it creates equity problems. So a lot of the movement to abolish tracking programs is that, and I find this quite frankly, quite racist when people say things like this, but they'll be like, there's just too many Asian kids in the high group. Right? Like, isn't it unfair that but
they're all the smart ones. That's
they're the way they test in. Yeah.
Well, yes, Sarah, that implies that you care more about their merits and their achievements than the racial makeup of the classroom. But that is the argument, right? Like this happens in New York every year.
Oh my God. Does this track in with everyone needs a fucking trophy now?
Yep.
1,000,000%. That's exactly what this is.
Yep.
That's
No,
the
it's
participation
ruining
trophy.
everything.
We can't yell at the kids, or they can't learn to, they
Ugh.
should never be punished. I mean, Seattle, I don't know if it was like the Seattle Unified School District, but they did away with their gifted and talented programs.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell if there's any lawyers that can hear me, the way you can advocate for gifted and talented, because I'm really about that. I think there should be way more of that. Like these average kids we're talking about, like if you've been left in that class, like bored, usually boredom is a sign of a very intelligent student, and they're just bored because they finished the work, exactly what you're saying. If they're in a class with everybody else, then they are just getting either nothing because the teacher's paying attention to all of this other chaos and the adults in the room and all this, whatever. But call gifted and talented the other special ed.
Yeah,
it's the other special ed. And I would love to do. This is literally why I'm looking at the America First Foundation. As much as Stephen Miller's a douchebag, I literally want to work with him and do something on this exact. I want to figure out a way to litigate out special education and litigate in more GT. But when Seattle, I'll finish with this. When Seattle canceled their GT programs because they said it was equity, but it was also a race issue. There were Black parents who were like, what the fuck are you doing? My kid loves this program. Hello, Black parent here. My kids are in this program. You're killing it. So I don't know what ended up happening, but it's just dumbing down everything. And yes, it's the trophy. Everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah. And this is the trend you've seen nationally. Whenever a school district starts talking a lot about DEI, equity, inclusion, the track and the gifted and talented programs are put on the chopping block. It definitely happened in Seattle. I think it happened in Portland. I think it happened in San Francisco. In New York, it almost happened a few years ago. I think with the new mayor, it probably will happen in the next couple of years. These programs are constantly on the chopping block because the truth is they're not going to be racially balanced in the way that the demographics of the country look. They're just not going to be. And that's viewed as inherently a problem. And I don't think that's fair to the kids, because what you're really saying is that you kid who are working in New York, when they were trying to eliminate it, they put out this policy paper, which had, I thought, the most insulting line I've ever seen in a political document, where they were explaining the rationales for eliminating gifted talented programs. And one of the things they said was a lot of white students often have disproportionate resources and tutors and blah, blah, blah. And that's why they're overrepresented. But then they had to admit New York's Asian population is actually economically disadvantaged. So why are their kids overrepresented in gifted and talented programs? And the answer was because Asian parents are willing to work extra shifts and spend all their personal spending money to get their kids into tutoring programs after school that they can't afford. And they would like to abolish the program to relieve the Asian parents of that burden.
Damn.
What the fuck? Can you imagine how patronizing that would be if you were one of those parents where you're like, I'm working 3 jobs to make sure my kid is in the best possible school and is going to go to Harvard. And you're saying you want to take that away from me for my own good? Get fucked. That, you know what I mean? That's an unbelievably fucked up thing to say to a parent. So,
Fair enough.
I think this is the sort of thing that makes people angry.
Oh, well, I am interested to see what the panel has to say. I've got a lovely 4 back there, and I know they all are going to bring excellent points up to us. So let me go ahead and get us into panel mode, and let's have some fun. Here we go. All right. I'm so excited. I know which way Josh is probably going to swing. I know which way Ryan's going to swing. Sasquatch, I think you hate the government. Clay probably hates the government. So I'd be interested to see which direction they go. However, I have officially opened up the gauntlet. So if you're watching over on the Raging Tomato side, please feel free to head on over to that side. If not, I'm going to drop the link in the chat here momentarily and set up the raid. We'll be heading over in that direction in 2 minutes, and Raging Tomato will shut down. All right, Joshua, you were waiting so patiently back there, first in line. So if you have something you want to kick in here, go for it.
Can I make one pitch before Joshua?
No, you cannot.
I'm so sorry.
You can talk when I'm done. You're welcome.
All right.
You're welcome.
Fuck. Fine, Joshua.
So, lawyer chick, question for you.
What?
Of all of the arguments you could make, so I didn't hear the whole thing. I heard one argument where I went, holy Jesus, this is a bad argument. This is the argument of someone. So why are you justifying DOE as a fucking jobs program? That's like the most offensive use of tax dollars. You're saying we need to create because we need janitors? That's fucking stupid. By the way, I want to point something out because I might be misconstrued as being too harsh. The way I show respect is by engaging with people's arguments. Not everybody feels the same way. All right, Ryan, you're allowed to speak now.
Good Ryan or bad
Ask
Ryan?
me a question.
I'll
Respecting me.
Yeah.
I'll give Elsie time to come up with her brilliant response. My pitch, to the extent I said anything that you find interesting or you think you fucking hate me and you just want to tell me what an asshole I am, my baby YouTube channel is like 90 subs away from monetization. So come by, tell me how smart or what an idiot I am, and I'd certainly appreciate it. And with that, Elsie, I leave you to give your biting rebuttal.
Congratulations on that. Yeah, when I say jobs program, I don't mean everybody gets a job like Cuba style, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I don't mind that my federal tax dollars go to employ fellow Americans. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
and I don't mind, wait, let me finish. I don't mind that they're good jobs. I don't mind that they come with benefits. I don't mind that they come with a pension. I don't mind that they have health insurance. I don't mind that it's a livable fucking wage. Like, why should I be mad? You know, we all pay, look at your federal taxes. You pay like 30% of your, tax dollars. I'd rather have that go to parks, and to employ my neighbors who are going to put money back into whatever economy. And also I'd rather have these jobs be in my local schools, in my local, government, wherever it's funded. That's just my opinion. So again, I'm not talking about like a communist style jobs program where it's like, just line up and get a job no matter what you're qualified for. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I don't mind the federal government employing lots and lots of people, and that my taxes subsidize that. It doesn't bother me. What do you want your tax dollars to
I do. Why the hell should we pay people just because we say no? That's where it's a jobs program. So you're saying it's a baby jobs program. So it's for the janitors. It's okay. The first year I ever made real money. Now I grew up making $4.75 an hour at my first job doing manual labor. Gives you an idea how old I am. It was legal at the time. I wrote a check for $53,000 to the IRS the first year I made money. I love this country. Glad to pay my taxes. But people who say, let's just spend tax dollars because I just assume spend them and other logics, you're making these moral arguments about why this is good spending versus bad spending, don't typically understand economics, or you wouldn't be for the spending on it. So it's a bad argument. You've got way better arguments if you think your point is defensible.
I write massive checks every year from my law firm for taxes. Okay, so I completely understand the economics of this. Like, it's not
no.
What
other people have things to say. There's another Ryan here too. I can beat you up some more if everyone.
There sure is.
Well, before anybody else jumps in, I'm officially going to remove over on the Raging Tomatoes side. I'm going to shut that one down. So if you haven't already made your way over to the Gauntlet, either catch the raid over or follow the link that I've put in the chat. If you know where you're going, head on over. We'll catch you on the other side. Okay, I'll leave it back to you guys.
I mean, the government only ever shifts money around in a leaky bucket, right? That's just how it goes. So, when you spend money, federal money on these things, you just end up with bloated inefficiency. And I guess, Joshua, I'm with you. I don't think that the job disappears if the federal government stops being the source of money. I think the job is there because somebody needs the job, typically. The only jobs that might disappear are the bureaucrats. And we have a bloated bureaucracy in our education system, and it's dragging the whole thing down. And if those are the jobs that get cut, I'm delighted because they're not helping.
Okay. So I want to speak a little bit about a couple things. So, well, number one, I was just looking into this. Apparently, the Department of Education does not require states to use Common Core, and several states don't. And so that was a weird angle to focus a lot on.
What do you mean by
also?
What do you mean by require?
Like there's literally a law that DOE is not allowed to mandate that states use Common Core.
They're not allowed to mandate it because they don't have constitutional authority to dictate educational policy. Yeah. So what they did is they incentivized states to do it by issuing, I think it was called a race to the top. Basically, they said that there's this pile of grant money, and the only way that you can qualify for the grant money is if you adopt Common Core. Almost every state capitulated because they wanted the grant money. And I did say during the debate, there are states like Texas that opted out and had better results. But that does mean that you need politicians who are able to resist a pile of federal money, which normally makes you vulnerable in local elections.
Sure. So I can understand that there's incentive to implement Common Core. I understand there's a lot of people who feel very negatively about Common Core, parents especially, and also a lot of teachers. I kind of wanted to speak to my experience with Common Core as I did some math tutoring in college. I worked at the Mathnasium, and we used a kind of Common Core type math program. And you kind of talked about this idea of like them banning or like blocking people from memorizing the algorithm or whatever for lining numbers up. I never saw any of that. We used tricks like that, but what we focused on was strategies that helped kids understand why those tricks worked, like why those algorithms worked, rather than just memorizing a raw algorithm that then they couldn't do without pen and paper. The other students who actually engaged in the strategies behind those algorithms, they were able to do this math in their head. So that doesn't seem like a bad thing necessarily, but I do think there's a lot of we lean on a lot of hatred of Common Core just because a lot of people struggle with it not being like it was when they grew up, like math is being taught differently. But I mean, I guess we can argue about the results.
I can speak to that because obviously I was not raised on Common Core. I was raised on memorization, lining the numbers up to do math, so on and so forth. By the way. But my kids obviously are learning in a more Common Core direction. And it was the most frustrating thing. I understand what you're saying, Ryan. When I started seeing what they were doing math-wise, I said, oh, it's not just memorization. They're teaching like applicability and concepts so that you can kind of think outside the box in order to put it together. I get it. But at the same time, when I showed my kids my way and how to do it, because I was like, fuck this, whatever you're doing, fuck this. And I showed them my way. Instant, like they were like, oh, I get that makes sense.
Well,
right?
Yeah, of course. It's easy to apply the algorithm, but what you're losing out on that is an understanding of why that algorithm works. So you're losing the opportunity to have a better foundation for higher maths later that you're kind of robbing them of by just having them memorize this trick that they can use that they don't have no idea why that trick works.
So Ryan is giving the pitch for Common Core, and I'm not mocking you for I've heard this.
I'm not saying Common Core is like perfect or anything. I think it has a lot of problems, and I'm not attached to one specific version of Common Core, which is why I think it's probably also good that schools, I believe, and states have the opportunity to implement Common Core in a variety of ways. Right? We can have experiments with how they do Common Core.
Well, they have limited experiments because they lose their federal funding if they experiment too much and they don't do Common Core anymore. But the thing about Common Core ultimately is that parents hate it. And the number one correlate between how much they hate it is how much they know about it. Like the more they learn about it, the more they hate it. And students kind of seem to hate it. Teachers kind of seem to hate it. And the problem with it ultimately is it was not correlated with any gains academically. Scores haven't increased. So the problem with Common Core is that it creates all this resentment. Nobody seems to really like it except for pockets of enthusiasts, and it doesn't work. It's just like that. That's the other problem. Like the numbers just aren't there. Education hasn't gotten better. So it's not the kind of thing that I think needs to be, let's say, core and forced in that sense where it needs to be similar across all states. I think there are kids, and I was one of them, who actually learn math the kind of way you're describing, and it works well for them. That it worked well for me in that regard, because that's just how I think about numbers. But I don't think that works for everybody, and I don't think it's worked nationally, unfortunately. It would be great if it did.
I'm not sure about the exact. I mean, I haven't like dug into this data specifically. I would be curious about, like, when we say it hasn't worked. I mean, if the scores that are being graded upon are also evolved with that, then I don't. We'd have to. It'd be difficult. Maybe I'm sure there are mappings that do this, like comparing exactly like what the scores were before with the different curriculums and how they've changed. Like if the I guess what I just as I guess the enthusiast you mentioned, and I'm not like, again, my heart's not like attached to Common Core. I just used it in these ways, and it was very helpful with the students I was working with, and like I don't know the results are inherently bad or that we couldn't see them differently. Yeah. But another thing you brought up was the 1619.
Give you the data, like this is just, it's not complete, but just from my
well,
notes.
you can send it in the back or whatever. That's fine. But like another thing you mentioned, which I understand a lot of these are like quips that you kind of lean into. But fundamentally, there was a lot of agreement on problems with the Department of Education, and then there was this kind of like faux sense that she was agreeing with you about abolishing it because of those agreements with problems that it has, when I don't think that was necessarily there. And like, again, one of these quips you leaned on was this idea of the 1619 project. You brought this up a couple times. The 1619 project, you understand, they don't teach that the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution were signed in 1619, right? Like that's not what's going on in these documents.
No, I understand. The point I was making there, and I think it is an important point, is that if national education policy is decided in DC and that we lean into a one-size-fits-all curriculum, then what you will see predictably is that national politics will influence your child's education, which most people are not comfortable with. Most people are not comfortable with the idea that ed policy in your kid's school and your kid's college will dramatically shift depending on who won the last election. I think most people would prefer, especially parents, that we leave our kids out of our political fights, and that this is not the place for that. Like, education should be the place where we're teaching core skills, core American philosophy, like the things you need to know to be a citizen, and not leaning into this political stuff that we're fighting over constantly on the internet, because it's just not shit our kids need to be inundated with. And if ed policy is decided on a national level, I think that's an inevitable outcome. And we saw that happen in the Biden administration. We're seeing it happen now in the Trump administration. I don't see why that would change with the next administration.
Sure. I think it's fair to not want to see that that like policy tug administration to administration. I don't see that if we're talking about like things like Title IX and title, like the other relevant titles here, like if these are being shifted to other federal departments, and after this I'll yield and let someone else jump in. If these are being shifted to other federal departments, that still has the same problem, right? Like Biden implementing Title IX in a specific way. I think you were saying that the Big Beautiful Bill shifts Title IX to a different department, right?
No, it's a different thing. It's part of the Trump's plan to move things around, but it's not part of the Big Beautiful Bill. But that's a detail. It doesn't matter. Keep going.
Okay, so sure. So they haven't actually. So Title IX would be if we did abolish the DOE tomorrow, Title IX would be dead in the water.
No, Title IX would be moved, but it wouldn't be moved.
Sorry. The enforcement mechanism would be dead in the water for the moment, right? If we abolish the DOE
under the Trump plan. Sorry, I was only technically correcting you. It's not part of the Big Beautiful Bill. It's part of a separate plan. Under Trump's plan, Title IX would be moved into the DOJ.
Like it would still exist. It just the law won't be abolished.
Well, I guess again that doesn't address the whole, like what you're talking about, the political sway of like Biden could then just use the DOJ to enforce Title IX the way he did with transgender children, which was struck down before Trump came into office, right?
It's not a perfect solution. It's just a necessary first
step.
Well,
it's not perfect. It's that it has nothing to do with abolishing the argument you made relevant to Title IX and the political whims. It's completely agnostic to whether or not the Department of Education exists, right? Like the political winds changing. It just has nothing to do with whether it's there.
No, not really.
Ryan, are you saying there needs to be a more complete solution, and we need to just make sure that at the federal level they acknowledge the 10th Amendment and just stay the fuck out of things? Because I think that Ryan and I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying I'm down for
you bring up
reforms
the
and
real
stuff,
yes,
but like
you're right.
I'm just criticizing the argument that Ryan made.
The first step is abolish the DOE, but then you got to do like 8 more steps to get where Joshua and I would want to go. Like it's only step 1, but the truth is, even step 1, which I would admit is an imperfect solution, is better because the people who would be implementing these regs wouldn't be DOE bureaucrats. The problem with DOE bureaucrats is that they think they know better about how to educate kids. The nice thing about putting it in DOJ is, yeah, there might still be some political wins, but at least the people there are there for civil rights stuff, not for education stuff. So they're just less likely to make a hash out of it because it's not their number one issue. But you know, I do agree with Joshua. We would this would be step 1, and then from there you would need to start really taking more aggressive steps to return power to the states. But you got to start somewhere.
Well, I'll just close out with, I mean, frankly, that sounds kind of like vibes. Like you're saying, like, well, it feels like bureaucrats, these bureaucrats in these positions, like they just want to do these weird esoteric policies that they think are fantastic, and like that's just your gut about these things. But I don't know why these people are choosing the policies they are. I don't know if it's because they are like whimsical and have these fantastic ideas, or if they are backed in like certain data and certain things that like. I feel like you haven't really.
Well, how many
evidence
bad ideas in a row? How many bad ideas would these bureaucrats need to come up with before you think, holy shit, these are not the bureaucrats for us? Like No Child Left Behind.
Education is complex.
Common Core
it's
fucking sucked. The idea regs fucking suck. All their new initiatives make things worse. So I feel like, yeah, like I would be very happy to have somebody else take a spin at the wheel.
I'll let Duck go, but yeah, I'm not convinced that all these things that you mentioned. I agree, all these things have like problems that are imperfect, but the idea, like, I feel like the language here is very loaded, that they're all catastrophic disasters, that these programs are all making everything worse, and I feel like it's all kind of loaded, so that it makes your position feel stronger than it actually is. But I'll yield to Duck.
Well, it's Brian, man. It's so funny. We had a debate with 2 teachers, and we disagree on our prescription, but we both agree that these programs are catastrophic. So I'm not sure what you're saying, buddy.
That's fine. But like, if I brought up a teacher who disagreed with you, then we couldn't make that argument anymore, right? Which I guarantee there are. So I'm just.
All I'm saying is, we're making arguments based off the data these programs created, which is miserable, our own experiencing teaching and these being miserable, and the misery it created in the communities that we served. You're basing your argument off, as far as I can tell, fucking nothing, and yet you accuse me of making a vibes-based argument. I think you're projecting, buddy.
Both things can be true, right?
What
your gut feeling about those policies and your own personal anecdotal experience doesn't contradict everybody else's.
That Common Core and No Child Left Behind were so good.
I'm not saying that they were amazing. I'm saying they were imperfect.
Who's being vibes-based, Ryan? Like, come the fuck on.
I think we both are, and I'm just actually honest about it, and you're not. But go ahead, Doug.
Well,
yeah, what's the literacy rate?
At what point? I mean, at what point do we stop being mediocre or gray area? And what point do we just say, you know what, something's just bad or something's just good? Right? There is sometimes a black and white, and we can acknowledge that. And if we sit in the gray area for too long, eventually all of the you're only going to see the bad stuff bubble up, because that's the only thing that's really sitting within that. That's the only thing that we do know is bad, right? Like it's all we're left with.
I'm saying states already have a lot of room to experiment with things, and even as you mentioned, like Texas is doing it right now. They didn't need to abolish the Department of Education to start doing their own things, right? Like, sure, maybe they're getting less funding from certain things, but like, I mean, if they're still capable of experimenting, then that's a good thing, right?
By certain things, you need the federal government.
They can afford to, right? We can start there. I think Texas is a very, to my understanding, is a very well-off state. Like, they handle their business very well, and that's without utilizing state income tax or something to that degree. So if they're able to do it, it's because they financially position themselves with their own leverage that they can afford to do it. Not all, like Delaware. I know Delaware is a shithole. Right. Every time I drive through that place, Ryan, you're probably familiar, but anytime I drive through Delaware to get up to New Jersey or New York, it's like, I hate this place, you know. but like even your southern states, I think what Georgia is like really underwater on a lot of things in their systems. They can't afford to say no. They can't afford to experiment. They can't afford those capabilities. So maybe if the federal government kind of forced that hand and just said, here, we're gonna give you money, figure it out, right? Maybe they can do it that way.
Or just cut down on the insane bloat that comes with these federal programs. Like what the DOE's really done is created a bureaucracy within our universities that's funded by putting our kids in tax debt, by massively increasing the price of universities, by subsidizing demand completely unnecessarily. It's created massive bloat on the state levels because now, you know, every state has to defend these IDEA lawsuits, which, as I was saying, in New York City is like a $600 million a year line item. And that's not even teaching. That's just the litigation aspect of it. So what these things do is they make education incredibly expensive and incredibly cumbersome. And it's not really that complicated. When you stack, you know, as I think Lawyer Chick put it well, you already have inefficient bureaucracies in a lot of these states. And then you stack another inefficient bureaucracy on top of it, and then you wonder, holy shit, why is things so inefficient?
So Ryan, this might be a conversation you're interested in having. So you know, when you position education as a bureaucracy, you know, to me, my opinion is you lose a lot of the richness of what education is, and it's not meant to romanticize a concept. You know, kind of the same way we do with John Locke. Or any of the early founding fathers thought. But if we think of like John Dewey, we think of, what was his name? Charles Saunders Peirce. We think of the early civil rights movement becoming intimately connected with education. It was a non-negotiable. You know, to me, this is all evidence of responsibilities that we as Americans have given the Department of Education as the administrator of the institution of education as one of them, right? And so if you talk about an inefficient bureaucracy, which is patently economic thinking, you know, what would you have the audience know about, like, what do we get back from thinking about efficiency in education?
Well, I think thinking about efficiency in education is absolutely critical because efficiency is what's crushing education. Like, you know, the reason I kept talking about New York City's numbers is because I know them because I teach there. So it's a thing. I'm just more familiar with the data. But, you know, like the idea that you're going to spend next year, $36,000 a kid to get data that shit is what, like, in terms of romanticizing it, I think what we do is we say, oh my God, if only we put more money into the system. But in some districts like New York, it's an unbelievable amount of money that's already going into the system. The problem is it's being really inefficiently utilized. Now, some of that is because New York City is very expensive, real estate's very expensive, teacher salaries are higher, there's a very strong union, which is very expensive. There's factors like that. And there's factors that relate to the federal government and the bureaucracy that's imposed through things like IDEA lawsuits. And underfunding, like IDEA is supposed to be covering at least 40% of special ed costs, and it covers 12. So, you know, they take the money, but they actually doesn't even cover the obligations of the program. So what you end up having is this romanticized idea of what schools could be, which is disconnected from the reality of the burdens they operate under. Like, and I know this is a long answer, sorry, but like one of the things that happened when I was a charter school teacher, we had less money per year than DOE schools in New York. Because we didn't qualify for full federal funding. So, and we were being funded by the charter group. So we actually had less money, but we had better results and we paid the teachers more. And the reason was we didn't have union contracts and all these other things that make it impossible to run a school system efficiently.
So I interviewed at a charter school to teach economics once. This was like close to 10 years ago, right? This was after my first tech job. And yeah, it's clear to see why some charter schools do perform well, right? You know, you have some people with master's degrees, something post-secondary, you know, whatever it is, that are teaching subjects, especially at the high school level, when people when people can deliberately think about like college readiness. And so this is, to me, that is a perfect example that illustrates why the public school system operates the exact same way. People in high school are also thinking about college readiness. Parents should be thinking about college readiness. You should be thinking about your readiness to enter the workforce and start doing like some of the basic adulting things. And to me, like, we can say that, well, you throw charter schools in the room, you look at the results and you say, well, this is obviously where inefficiency is. Charter schools can find inefficiencies in market based on real estate and the stuff you mentioned in New York City. And for them, life is just a little better. Life is a little bit better. And some people can see that, but public schools are the exact same thing. It's the exact same process, exact same people. And so I don't, as someone who went to like one of the best school districts in my state, there's nothing wrong with it. One of my friends, Ryan, got a master's degree in history. Mm-hmm. And so like, and she went back and she actually became a teacher at the high school I graduated from. Yeah.
Not the best thing about charter schools is, as someone who worked at one really good one and one really bad one before I went to law school, the good one is still in business. The bad one no longer exists. That's my favorite thing about charter schools.
But what was so bad about the bad one, Ryan? I've been thinking about this.
Good and what bad?
If there's good school and there's bad school, what makes the
second
great
school made the giant error that was, well, first they were poorly run, so they filed their paperwork badly, and this is a kind of a legalistic thing, but that cost them a year of data analysis. So like they were inefficiently run in a way that actually cost them in the long run and shortened the lifespan of the school. So that's issue one. Issue two is that we were working in really economically disadvantaged areas of Brooklyn. In fact, like the second school I was working at was like a block from the Marcy projects where Jay-Z historically grew up. So like we were like right in this area. There were guns outside. There were shootings outside the school. Like it was a fairly rough neighborhood. And they had this brilliant idea. And it's like a classic good intentions, oh my God, what were you thinking thing, that they were going to teach kids the way that white privileged kids were taught. Because why should we talk down to these kids? Let's give them the same education they get in the suburbs, right?
Sure.
So they focused 100%. On whole word instruction. But it turns out that whole word instruction works to teach kids how to read in the suburbs because the kids already know how to read before they go to school. And whole word instruction just makes them faster. But if you're teaching kids who don't learn how to read at home, you have to teach phonics. You can't teach whole word instruction.
Okay.
So the methodology they selected for their core literacy instruction was based off an ideological presupposition that was just frankly wrong. And as a result, they just didn't teach any fucking kids how to read. So the data was terrible.
So to me, that's like a really interesting story. But like where we are today, it doesn't have anything to do with what I would say. So what I would say is that it doesn't have anything to do with the institution of public education. My opinion or my belief is that it becomes the case that that schools can improve outcomes. Schools can produce specific outcomes. Teachers are a part of that. Parents are a part of that. The community is a part of that. And saying defund, saying that, there's a documentary on a charter school in LA in the ghetto, in whatever the ghetto is, that shows this school is performing so highly. Like this isn't evidence that we ought move away from a system that's already responsible for educating so many people and historically has done so very well.
Well, the issue that I have, and this is not about
problems. This
is not about
Ryan. Sorry, real quick, because you're so polite and I hate interrupting you. You're one of like Sarah's best like main speakers, but I mean this. If people just recognize that, look, it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. Like we need to graduate 10 to 20,000 PhDs each year. And so as a parent, your goal should be that like my kid, my kid personally may not be a PhD when she's older. But if she is not aware of what that means, I don't think I would have thought that I could have gone back and done something differently. I don't think there's a problem with me saying that.
Yeah, I don't think that really interacts meaningfully with the topic. Like, I think that, like, I told the story about the charter school because the charter school got closed. There were lots of schools in the New York City public school system that made the same error, but they didn't get closed because they were insulated by layers of bureaucracy. My problem with bureaucracy in education is that it insulates schools from the results of their choices. And if in a market, if you make a shitty choice and you have a shitty product, you go out of business eventually. In education, because it's a government bureaucracy and it's a government monopoly, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it often takes decades before we realize that we just screwed up a generation of kids and we didn't give them what they needed. And I would like the system to be more responsive. And the only way I can think of to make the system more responsive is to make it as local as possible, because that's where the parents are who care and really want it to be good. The more bureaucratic and broad and national you make it, the more it's going to be responsive to politics and other forces, but it's not going to be responsive to the needs of that community.
Speaking of teaching people, allow Tom Carpenter to be your teacher, teaching you how to donate appropriately and what we like to see on screen, as he sends yet another beautiful red color to put up here. Tom says, "Happy Thanksgiving to the Tomato Clan. Choose love, spread happiness, give hugs, and take no shit." I love it. I love it. And I love it so much. Thank you, Tom, so kindly. And happy Thanksgiving back to you and Jax. And may it be a fun. I think somebody earlier said that we're serving duck for Thanksgiving. So, Duck, you are officially on the menu, apparently. And
I thought I would be
Weevil,
on the dais, not Sarah. I thought I would be on the dais, not on the dinner plate. This is a first for me.
Thumpy Weevil, you're
second.
for the kids' table. You're at the kids' table, Duck. Thumpy Weevil says, "Why not argue about the parents outside of school to continue teaching? School isn't daycare." And I believe Ryan, number one, you were referring to that earlier, and Lawyer Chick as well. I believe you were both speaking to that when I asked about homeschooling and how the education system has been set up to be a daycare with a little bit of additional learning in place. Did you want to add in on this concept?
I mean, I agree. I totally agree. I think that we spend a lot of time in our ed system doing stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense because parents need a place to put their kids so they can go to work. And that's a large part of what we're paying for. And if we were honest about that, we could pay for it more cheaply.
I really resent this, like, wanting to spend less money on education. It's starting to grate on my nerves. And I just wonder, do you have the same criticism of the Department of Defense? Do you talk about going into the bloat, or the fact that, the Department of Defense has had so many audits and that we're not, looking at that? So I just want to put that out there. But in terms of
I'm a budget hawk.
Okay,
I think the national debt is the thing of all the crises. The one that is most likely to really negatively impact my children's future is the national debt. So I am delighted to cut federal spending wherever we can cut it.
Well, we'll see. And I think that cutting education, or, food stamps, or these little are like drops in the bucket to what would really solve the problem. But I want to talk to the parent comment quickly. Not all parents are created equal.
That is true.
Doesn't mean that the kids are the property of the state.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck?
I want to hold on.
That's all I'll say to that.
Thumping Weevil, this was your super chat. If you wanted to add in on this or expand a little more.
And we're trying to.
Weevil?
Well, I just want to say that, like, I feel like a lot of these. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking there's a delay on you, Weevil. Do you want to jump out and back in again?
Jump on it.
Yeah,
Like
there's
a
definitely,
pogo stick.
there's definitely a delay.
I don't see it as like necessarily
try
a
that
bad
really
thing
quick. Hold on.
that like public schools are also like kind of serve as a practical daycare. I mean, daycare is extremely expensive, and I don't see that as necessarily. I mean, fair enough. Like we could be more clear that that's part of it. I don't know who's like beating around the bush and saying it, like arguing that it's not in some part serving as a daycare. I don't know who's arguing that, but I mean, yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
I'll join the socialist on that one.
But what if parents? I've got a question. I got a question for Lawyer Chick, and maybe Ryan has ideas on this too. Maybe Ryan thinks about this. So, what if I were to say that, look, some parents are really passionate about education. This affirms your point that not all parents are the same or equal, whatever it was. But it's also the case that some parents will look into advancing their own children's education in the technical sense, and they'll realize they are putting their head in someone else's business, or it feels like it's not a match, it's not a fit, it's sort of wobbly. And so it seems to me that, like, if you look under the surface of our human nature or what we do in society, it doesn't mean a whole lot to say that not all parents are the same or not all parents are equal. It seems more to me that, like, look, some parents, myself included, when I was a new dad, needed to learn how to go fuck myself. That was the core skill of being a parent.
I don't know what do you mean by that?
What do you mean? So if I don't know something, or I'm not equipped to handle a situation, is it the case that there's a way to solve it? Or is it the case that I need to be more critical of myself?
I educate myself,
go
sir.
fuck myself.
Yeah.
I do that. I go educate myself. I get involved in whatever the issue
Something
is.
else. Oh, I understand.
Everything about it.
And when I say not all parents are created equal, I mean, not that not all parents know or as skilled. Some parents really aren't involved. And some parents really let their kids raise them. And so, all parent, I mean, I don't have to tell you all, you're all probably parents. Parents are different across the gamut. So to say, well, parents really care about their local schools. I mean, when Michelle Rhee came into Washington, D.C. and was shutting down schools, parents were begging for the schools to stay open. They wanted neighborhood schools. And Michelle Rhee, who was the very, very controversial chancellor of the D.C. public schools for a few years, I remember her making a speech and saying, these parents should want a new school. They should want us to shut down these schools and make better schools. That's what they should want. And it's like, who the hell are you coming into a city you've never lived and telling parents what they want and shutting down their neighborhood schools? And these parents were like fighting to keep these schools open. So not, the parent, I mean, we should listen to parents, of course, but not all parents are the same in terms of how they advocate, what they want, how informed they are, how ready they were to even have kids
values
in the
are
first
different.
place.
But this is old. This is new.
Let me do a sound check real quick, Duck. Thumping Weevil, can you hear me?
If you can hear,
yeah, I can hear you, but it seems like it's glitching on my end.
Yeah, there's another delay. I want you to jump back out, do a whole refresh or something, and then try to come back. It's completely delayed. There's like a whole 10 seconds in between. So let's go ahead and we'll try it again.
It's my end. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It happens. All right, try again. Ryan. Yeah, Ryan. Jesus.
Yeah, I know. What did I do? Jesus. It's funny. This reminds me of I did a debate with Soy Pill once. And I think what we were debating the need for the U.S. mail service, and he took the position that, and it kind of reminds me of these kind of like the classically lefty position, where he's saying like the right to vote by mail is so essential that if there's one woman living on a hill somewhere and that she would not get mail service because it's too expensive for like Amazon or US or UPS to deliver to her, that it would justify the entire national apparatus to ensure that she could vote by mail on election day. And I think sometimes we do get that thinking with federal policy, where we say, if we don't federalize it, then there's the risk that there's going to be parents who do a bad job with their kids, and as a result, their kids get a bad education. And the newsflash is there are parents who do a bad job with their kids, and their kids currently get a bad education.
That's
and
really
that's
fucked
not
up thing to
actually
say.
fixable. Like
that's a really
if one-
fucked up thing to say. That's not productive. That's not helpful. I don't
it's
see
not-
why
it's
you're trying to
nobody-
lead
Hold
this
up,
conversation.
hold up, hold up,
Total
hold up,
bullshit.
hold up,
It is the
Total
current
bullshit.
status. It is the
Duck,
status
welcome
quo
to reality.
today.
Welcome to reality
when
indeed.
I was teaching with
Yeah.
all
Welcome to
the
reality
systems in
indeed.
place that we're
Hold
talking
on.
about.
Yeah, this is the world.
Like I just true story. I went and at the school I worked at, we did parent visits. So I would visit every student before
Sure.
the school year started to create a relationship with the family. While I'm visiting the mom, she was ordering drugs from a delivery service and trying to use code language. Like I wouldn't figure out what the fuck she was doing. Now, the odds
It's
that
normal to
her
order
daughter
5 gallons of milk
is
on the
going to
phone.
have the same level of educational attainment in 10 years as my daughter is infinitesimally small, and there's nothing that we're going to do societally to normalize that, because it turns out good parenting is a really big advantage. We're not here to cosmically right the scales. What we are here to do
okay
is
then.
provide the best
That's okay then.
education system possible. And the idea that we're going to have some kind of utopian system is part of the problem, because when you're focused on utopia, you never make the hard calls and the trade-offs that actually make things better.
Okay, that's
let me-
Trade-offs
illuminating.
being
Sorry, Doc,
that
hold
a lot of
on.
children
Everyone
get
Everyone can hold their thoughts
disproportionately
for
worse
just
and worse
a
education.
second
She can
before.
hold her sound check.
Thank you. Thumping Weevil, are you with us?
Man, send in a dono and get a better internet.
I think it's still Weevil. I don't think it's working. I'm gonna go ahead and remove you. Try again.
Now let Duck spaz out.
Doc,
Doc.
and then Ryan number two.
So, so this is a way to clarify thinking. Ryan, you and I probably agree on this, is that your personal experience is, I'm sure, very strong. I won't disagree with your personal experience. In terms of evidence of the Department of Education, per the topic of the evening, a particular case is not necessarily generalizable, or it actually is generalizable in the things that actually matter. And so it shouldn't be the case. I think it is the case that people like you and lots of people should care, but they should care about all of it, not just some of it. And saying that there's just not a solution, or you are living in utopia, is automatically stealing the spotlight from people who want to solve the problem. And I think there's a lot of us in the audience tonight who are saying, I'm going to sit here and I'll wait. Let me let you finish your thought. Why don't you tell us all who this is for? Who are you helping right now?
Who's he talking to?
I have
It's
no
not an
idea.
anecdote.
Nobody
No, he's
knows
just being
what Doc
Doc.
is doing.
It's not an
You
anecdote.
told him to spurg out. He's spurging out straight up. It's a good
Doug,
show.
Well, I mean,
Are you
amazing?
Doug, to be totally clear, the
I think
story
Ryan
I
understands.
told
Go ahead, Ryan.
and the reality I was describing about that girl's educational career happened in the universe where the DOE is doing federal policy. So it's not like that was a creation of my preferences. That's a creation of today's status quo. Now, the reality is that in order to fix a system, you have to be critical